Imagine waking up to the sound of, like, a kamikaze drone buzzing right outside your window, but your city's air raid sirens are completely silent.
Oh, wow. Yeah, just terrifying.
Right. No text alerts, no warnings, just the sudden realization that the sky is falling. And that was the actual reality for residents in Moscow recently during their largest drone assault since the war started.
Which is just wild to think about.
It really is. Welcome to this deep dive, where you and I are going to explore a week of massive structural pressure on global players. Our mission today is to look at how these major players are handling the strain, contrasting these really loud kinetic system failures with, quiet shadow expansions.
Okay, and let's unpack this with that kinetic failure in Russia.
Yeah, because the silence from Moscow civil defense is truly staggering.
Yeah.
You have incoming drones, yet the state apparatus essentially just freezes.
Yeah, it is.
They completely failed to acknowledge the threat to their own citizens in real time.
Yeah, and meanwhile, the physical damage is impossible to hide.
Yeah.
Ukraine launched these consecutive strikes on Moscow's Kapanya oil refinery. Right, and they hit a very specific part, didn't they?
Exactly. They specifically targeted the Euro Plus processing unit. And for those tracking the logistics, that's the critical distillation node that turns raw crude into usable fuel.
So taking that out is a huge deal.
Oh, absolutely. Destroying it creates an instant, massive bottleneck. But the tactic itself is what really stands out here. They hit it, they waited for the repair crews to cycle in, and then struck that exact same infrastructure again.
That's incredibly calculated.
It's like slashing someone's tire, waiting for them to, sweat through mounting the spare, and then immediately slashing the spare.
That's a great way to put it. And, what's fascinating here is the widening, undeniable gap between official state protocols and the reality on the ground.
Right.
The state projects this image of total control, yet intercepted polling data ahead of their upcoming elections shows a sharp spike in domestic dissatisfaction. People are protesting, or at least wanting to.
Well, that domestic pressure makes total sense when you look at the internal rot actively enabling these strikes. Like, we just saw a former FSB officer handed a 13-year sentence for embezzling funds.
And those funds were meant for portable anti-drone electronic warfare.
Exactly. They inflated costs, used shadow intermediaries, and bought gear that totally failed testing. It really makes you wonder, are they just repainting relics and calling it next gen?
Honestly, it's not just lazy repainting. It's a symptom of a fundamental supply chain collapse. Take their highly touted Oreshnik hypersonic system.
Oh, yeah, the missile system.
Yeah, its guidance architecture relies on outdated Soviet-era gyroscopes. And why? Because Western sanctions have successfully restricted their access to modern microchips.
Wow, so they literally have to use old parts.
Exactly. They are forced to use old hardware, which, at high hypersonic speeds, introduces significant trajectory drift. So if we connect this to the bigger picture, endemic corruption and sanctions evasion aren't just financial crimes.
Right, they have real-world consequences.
They were directly degrading frontline capabilities and leaving their capital exposed.
Okay, so you have Russia suffering these massive, expensive kinetic failures. Contrast that with China, which is using a radically different, terrifyingly cheap approach.
Right, the administrative expansion?
Yes. Instead of, firing missiles around Taiwan, Beijing is using civilian maritime safety and Coast Guard ships to normalize control. They operate under this guise of offshore governance.
Exactly. By weaponizing transport authorities and rescue units rather than deploying the military, they can just conduct inspections and dictate navigation zones.
This is so insidious.
It is. They achieve territorial dominance without technically firing a shot or, triggering a formal military response.
And here's where it gets really interesting. They are actually exporting this shadow governance globally. France recently dismantled multiple clandestine Chinese police stations operating on French soil.
Yeah, the mechanics of how those work are just chilling.
Absolutely. They bypass official embassies entirely, using local community fronts to threaten a dissident's family back home. It basically forces individuals to voluntarily return to China without ever triggering international extradition laws.
It's a masterclass in blurring the lines between domestic law enforcement and global espionage. Authoritarian regimes are, they're treating international borders as mere suggestions.
Right.
And we're seeing this non-traditional approach extend into space, too. The People's Liberation Army is shifting its strategic focus to militarize low Earth orbit.
Wait, like with satellites?
Yeah, they don't look at satellite constellations like Starlink as mere commercial internet providers. They view them as the central enablers of modern drone warfare and real-time targeting. They are actively preparing for a contested orbital domain.
So what does this all mean for you? It means the definition of a battlefield is fundamentally changing. It's no longer just, tanks on a border.
Not at all.
It's the global fuel supply chain, the navigation routes for your consumer goods, and the commercial satellites routing your daily data.
Which brings up an important question to leave you with today. If the next major global conflict is quietly fought through administrative maritime laws in the Pacific, coercion in our own neighborhoods, and commercial satellites in low Earth orbit, are traditional militaries even equipped to fight a war that doesn't look like a war?